There's one hunt in Monster Hunter that feels completely different to the rest. You can't even really call it a hunt. An event is a better word, featuring a monster so old and so feared that its name survives only as a whisper. The end of the world is here, and when it's all over, you're left feeling not that you overcame it, but that you survived it. You already know its name, Fatalis. This fight leaves you feeling like no other, and that feeling is carefully constructed. This is a series that wants you to pay attention, understand the monster you're hunting, and master it. Fights turn from a chaotic scramble where you keep your distance and approach with caution, to you recognizing how your opponent moves and attacks. You'll learn when it's safe to go on the offensive, and spot where the weak points are. After a few hunts, that feeling of panicked survival morphs into one of calm confidence. Monsters remain an engaging challenge, but they're nothing you can't handle. That mastery is the core of Monster Hunter, and it's so rewarding that it keeps players coming back for more time and time again. Fatalis never gives you that feeling. Even after you've beaten it, even after you've crafted all its armor and weapons, there's still a tension that never goes away. If you don't bring your absolute best every time, then Fatalis will win. It's a fight that feels like the ultimate Monster Hunter experience, and the work to make that happen starts long before you see it for the first time. Fatalis is introduced not as a monster, but as an event. We're told of earthquakes, forest fires, and endemic life vanishing. These simultaneous catastrophes appeared once before, recorded and then nearly forgotten, by the ancient kingdom of Shrade. They were powerful, they were prepared, and shortly after seeing these warnings, they were obliterated in a single night. This is already more lore than most monsters receive, and it comes early enough to let our imaginations conjure up an image of the threat we're facing. We're then back on a boat, returning to the old world in a cutscene that mirrors your journey at the very start of the game. Only now, you're a master hunter. Aiden has gone from speculating about why elder dragons are crossing the sea to wearing armor made from one. Again, we hear more about Fatalis, this time about how the name itself wasn't really intended to be a name at all. Instead of a beast, it was supposed to describe an existence of some kind. And over generations, that word came to refer to the dragon itself. Aiden sums it up. You're not about to fight a monster, but history itself. And then we arrive at the kingdom of Shrade, or what's left of it. Ruins are not new to the Monster Hunter series, but they were new to World and Iceborne. The game is an expedition to an uncharted continent, and the focus was on nature and the vibrant ecosystems of this beautiful new world. You explored a land without any trace of humans, and the ruins of Shrade contrast this entirely. Now you're walking an ancient gravesite, under an unnatural blood-red sky. There's a sense of loneliness that hangs over this place. Ever since that ancient battle, it's remained quiet, still, waiting, until the earth begins to shake and the ruins start to collapse. The team is caught unprepared. Reinforcements are on the way, but won't arrive before Fatalis does. Everyone evacuates, leaving you and Aiden alone to buy time for the cavalry to arrive. The sense of isolation grows stronger. Once again, part of the ancient kingdom crumbles under the weight of the monster, another example of its power before you even see it. And then, through the dust and collapsing stone, Fatalis appears, not charging, not roaring, just walking, shattering everything in its path with such a casual, deliberate ease. The fight starts and despair ensues. Fighting Fatalis for the first time is unlike any other fight in Iceborne. It's hard to stress just how overwhelming this fight is. Unless you've prepared with some of the best armor in the game, Fatalis has multiple attacks that will kill you instantly. Its sheer size makes most of those attacks difficult to avoid. Its flames can swallow entire sections of the arena, and to top it off, it can move with a deadly speed. It takes time to learn how to fight a monster like this. Time to understand its movements, time to recognize the openings. Time you simply don't have when your only focus is staying alive. Throughout this, the first theme of the fight, The Legend Descends, is playing. The chanting of the choir sounds desperate and almost panicked. It's as if this encounter wasn't supposed to happen, and now they lament the tragedy it's bound to end in. At this point, the sense of isolation isn't just emotional, but mechanical. As the reinforcements haven't arrived yet, you can't fire an SOS flare and receive help from other players. There's no friends who can lend a helping hand, no veteran who can carry you through the fight. Aside from Aiden, the game forces you to face Fatalis alone. This is fantastic design. Monster Hunter is, at its core, a multiplayer game. Even when playing solo, you're given a palico for company. More targets mean monsters divide their attention, sharing the burden and allowing you to make more mistakes, but not Fatalis. If you're going to survive this, you're going to need to learn how. You'll start to recognise the tells of some moves, seize on an opening or two. It will still take many failed attempts, and you're not anywhere near a sense of mastery, but eventually, you'll chip away enough health to trigger a cutscene and end the first phase. Fatalis flies into the sky and unleashes a torrent of flame that completely covers the arena. You have to hide under a metal barricade, which then begins to melt under the assault from the dragon. When the flame finishes, the barricade that stood for 1,000 years has been wiped away entirely, opening the arena to a wider area. A phase transition like this should feel like progress, proof that you're winning. But here, the arena feels less safe than before. Your protective barrier has been reduced to liquid, and the dragon is now airborne, raining down fire from above. After all of this, Fatalis still has 80% of its health left. But this new phase presents new opportunities. You've held out long enough for reinforcements to arrive, and other hunters can now join the struggle. The time spent alone means you, along with everyone else, now has a basic grasp of how to survive the dragon's onslaught. This part of the arena has weaponry, a roaming ballista, cannons, and one-shot binders that can temporarily tie down Fatalis. Bear in mind it will target you more if you try and use these, preventing them from becoming easy ways to gain an advantage. The theme shifts to Limitless Courage, a fitting name for this stage. It still sounds dangerous, still carries the same looming menace, and the choir returns from before. But where the legend descends felt suffocating and inevitable, this feels different. This no longer sounds like Fatalis' theme, a theme that represents its overwhelming power. Now, it sounds like a battle. Fatalis has a few new moves in this phase, like its delayed explosion fireball. This section is longer than the first, requiring you to whittle the dragon's health down to 50% before entering the third and final phase. When that moment arrives, Fatalis again flies high above to unleash a devastating torrent of flame, and you have to retreat and take cover. Once more, your reward for surviving is to run and hide. This barricade is sturdier than the first. It's mechanical, thick, and has stood strong all this time, but it's melted and blown away just the same. From here, the ruins of Shrade have only one thing left to offer you. Fatalis returns, and if you haven't proven yourself, dealt enough damage to its head, that is, then all of its fire attacks will now be tinged with blue flame, and deal an absurd amount of damage. Getting hit by anything is a death sentence, your only hope being to dodge them entirely. The series has gradually been incorporating more and more DPS checks, but this one works so well because it's not an instant fail state. It's incredibly hard, but you can still hold out against this supercharged Fatalis until you can break its head, containing its power and removing those deadly blue flames. This stage comes with even more new attacks, and Fatalis is even faster. Hunts will frequently end long before you reach this stage, so learning these moves takes much more time. Once again, you'll feel that panicked struggle just to survive from the start of the hunt. But hold out long enough and the battered ruins will offer up their final help. Something that once pushed Fatalis back, something that made sure this place wasn't reduced entirely to ash all those years ago. You hop up on the wall, and when the time is right, you activate the Dragonator. Gigantic drills pierce the dragon, and as it falls to the ground, the choir falls silent. The third and final theme starts to play. In the soundtrack, its official name is The Final Confrontation, but it has a much more fitting one, Proof of a Hero. This is no longer Fatalis' theme, or a theme of the battle between the two of you. You are about to prove yourself. This is your theme. The dread is gone, and in its place flows an overwhelming sense of hope. Proof of a Hero has played many times in the series before, but it's never felt quite like this. And that's because no fight has ever made you feel so small before, never made you work so hard to turn the tide like this. For the entire fight, Fatalis feels like something you've endured, something you've survived. But now, for the first time, it feels like something you can defeat. Because something's changed, but it's not Fatalis, it's you. To get to this point, you'll have to understand this fight. You'll have learned to read Fatalis, know when you can punish and when you should keep distance. At this point, you're not hiding, not panicking, you're fighting, and you're winning. And then, just like that, you'll land one more blow, and Fatalis finally falls. The dragon lies still beneath the ruins of the kingdom it once destroyed, and you feel triumphant, sure, but also relieved. You went face to face with a legend and survived. This moment is Monster Hunter at its absolute peak, thanks to the way the fight works thematically, emotionally, and mechanically. There are plenty of great fights in this series, but none of them make you feel the way Fatalis does, and that difference is the reason this fight has endured. Compare Fatalis to another very memorable monster from the same game, Alatreon. These two share a lot of similarities thematically and emotionally. They're both black dragons, the most feared and powerful monsters in the game's world. They both served as the final bosses of past games, offering up the ultimate challenge of their respective generations. But where Fatalis is placed in a story about an ancient kingdom reduced to ash, and an arena that reinforces its legacy, Alatreon is placed in a generic cavern. There's no sense of history here, no evidence of the destruction it's caused, and no reminder of what's at stake. It's just another arena. Mechanically, Alatreon is really interesting. Throughout the fight, it'll switch between different elemental states, changing its attacks. You need to also switch to the correct elemental weapon to counter these changes, and if you don't deal enough of the correct element's damage, you'll fail a DPS check and be instantly wiped. This also means you're explicitly encouraged to play in multiplayer. This was before the weapon switching introduced in Wilds, so each player would ideally come equipped with a different elemental weapon to cover all the possible states. An interesting idea, but it also strips the fight of the heavy isolation Fatalis forces you to feel on its first encounter. But this mechanic does make the fight really engaging. You have to pay attention to its states, understand the corresponding elemental weaknesses, and plan and prepare accordingly. It's like a puzzle that you need to solve. The difference between the two then becomes how they make you feel on failure. Alatreon feels like you've made a mechanical mistake, whereas Fatalis feels like you died. There's no single trick that makes the Fatalis fight manageable. The core of the fight is simple, and failing its DPS check only increases the difficulty. It maintains its mechanical challenge while still making you feel like you're surviving a catastrophe, not the game's systems. Clearing Alatreon feels like you solved it. Clearing Fatalis feels like you overcame it. Another comparison we can make is to Shara Ishvalda. Shara is given plenty of build-up. There's earthquakes rippling across the new world, and rumours of something called the Old Everworm. It hints at something buried deep beneath the earth, an idea that gets your imagination racing. When you finally encounter it, you're faced with a colossal monster made of stone. It's slow, imposing, and almost like fighting a statue that's sprung to life. And then the rocks start to fall off, it steps back, and sheds what turns out to be only its outer shell. This phase shift is one of Iceborne's most memorable moments, because you're now faced with something that looks completely alien. Its body is pale and oddly twisted, and there's something unsettlingly human about its face. The music shifts from a regular enough battle theme to something more frantic, and the atmosphere feels surreal. For a moment, Shara feels unknowable, but only for a moment. The spectacle is fantastic, but soon the fight shifts into something familiar. You'll come to learn its tells, recognise when and where you can punish. What felt mysterious becomes understood, and before long, mastered. It's a brilliant boss, particularly for how it handles the thematic and emotional side of a hunt. But mechanically, it offers up the classic Monster Hunter formula. Fatalis endures because it refuses to give you that experience. None of its phase changes transform it significantly, nothing recontextualizes it or shifts the tone of the fight. By the end, it's just as terrifying as it was at the beginning. The difference makes Shara feel unsettling, and Fatalis feel oppressing. Together, these two comparisons highlight what makes Fatalis truly unique. Alatreon tests your preparation and ability to mechanically solve a fight. Shrade brings surprise, mystery, and spectacle. Both are memorable and enjoyable, but they ultimately reassure you. Understand their tricks, and you'll beat them without too much trouble. Fatalis offers none of these comforts. Preparation will only get you so far, and the fight is structured to keep you feeling helpless and oppressed right up until the end. Mechanically, you need to earn every moment of success, and the theming makes each of those moments feel all the more rewarding. It might seem a little odd that I chose these two monsters for this comparison, given that they're both from Iceborne and both are fought before you reach Fatalis. I chose them because they're the best ways to illustrate my points, and because nothing since has improved on what the Fatalis fight tries to do. Zoshir is a great fight, with plenty of Fatalis DNA, but it's designed to exemplify and tie up the game's themes on nature and human interference, along with a healthy dose of nostalgic fanservice for players to enjoy. Nawa was all about encouraging you to master the game's wirebug systems, and that brilliant moment of Magnamalo arriving to turn the tide. Fatalis focuses only on the core of what makes Monster Hunter so addictive, that loop of struggle, learning, and mastery. Everything in this fight, from the build-up to the phase transitions to the music itself, has been designed to put that core gameplay as the absolute focus. And that's why Fatalis endures as the ultimate test, the ultimate hunt, and the ultimate Monster Hunter experience. It's impossible to forget, and that's because it doesn't make you feel like a hero. It makes you prove that you are one. Thanks for watching.